TCM podcast, all about Chinese medicine. Welcome to a new episode at Traditional Chinese Medicine TCM podcast. Today we're going to talk about the wind. The wind in traditional Chinese medicine. There are so many things to say about this, but if you haven't heard, traditional Chinese medicine believes that man is a reflection upon the universe, like the existence of a microcosm within the macrocosm. The term climate in TCM refers to agents that cause diseases. The theory of Chinese medicine uses the names of the organs to illustrate related patterns of physical, emotional, or psychological problems. Wind, or Feng Xie, in Chinese, is one of the most difficult terms to understand. Chinese medicine, as a holistic medicine system, considers the human body as a whole and attributes diseases as imbalances between the different elements. TCM are not only important processes, which basically they follow within the body, but how pathological processes are manifested in response to external and environmental stimuli. TCM treatments, rather than being aimed at healing a particular symptom, focus on restoring the body's balance. Wind is one of 5 climates that is manifested within the 5 seasons, such as autumn, winter, spring, early summer, and late summer. Wind produces and speeds up pathological movements in the body. Wind in TCM is considered to be the basic causative factor for many diseases. It is young in nature and it's associated with spring. It penetrates the skin and pores through acupuncture meridians, especially through areas related to the neck and upper back. It is often accompanied by other external factors, such as cold and damp weather. When the wind invades, the body's defensive capabilities are weakened, making pores in the skin lose their set, letting pathogens, for instance, bacteria and viruses, move in the body. Usual wind-associated symptoms include common cold, perspiration, and edema. Chinese medicine classifies wind into several categories, such as cold, hot, damp, and dryness. Wind character is related to movements. It blows fast and causes pain, which often changes the body zone. Wind often causes itching, rash, spasms, tremors, and tics, which often move from one part of the body to another. Generally speaking, wind attacks the liver in TCM, which actually means hepatic system, and causes dizziness, spasms, convulsions, and even coma. The liver system involves the physical liver, acupuncture meridian, liver-related disharmonies or patterns, and liver diseases, which means actual diseases. What would be the character of wind? The symptoms of winds in the body are often characterized by coming and going, sometimes suddenly, vary the same as actual wind appears in nature. Our health is the result of a balance between yin and yang and additional forces. TCM basic theory states that vital energy qi moves and regulates the blood. In TCM, the root of most diseases represents a great imbalance of the various energy systems. We are aware of the human body's capacity to resist different pathogens and to keep intact relative balance. Chinese call it Feng Xie. It means true power, which represents inherited and acquired energy stored in the kidneys. It actually means that our health pretty much depends on the state of inherited factors. Pathogen factors, xie are the main triggers of these balances. It is considered that pathogen factors are active only in extreme conditions with deep layer influences in the body, causing vital energy, liquids, and blood disbalances. In Chinese medicine, pathogens are called evils, which goes back to the shamanistic culture in China. It is believed that any sudden appearance of diseases, for instance like a wind, shows evil possession. Chinese medicine considers winds Actually, wind is a pathological factor. It invades the body from outside when vital energy qi loses the ability to protect the body. The body tries to expel pathogens through the skin. It causes the body to rise in temperature and sweat. In most cases, humans do not adapt to the seasonal rhythm of the energies. Wind nature represents changing locations of influences. It causes movement disorders, for instance, muscle pain, spasm, joints contracture, etc. Wind attacks fast and change rapidly with fast-paced, changeable symptoms such as arthritis, Parkinson's disease, or stroke. For example, Zhongfang, which is in Chinese, is translated as wind strike. In modern medicine, it presents, in fact, acute cerebrovascular disease. Wind generates humidity, dryness, and sometimes heat, which invade the body because of wind. By its nature, wind is a pathogen of the yang type. Its direction is upward, thus it affects the upper body, mostly face and head, and the body's surface. It causes a mismatch between the openings and the closing of the pores of the skin. How to prevent from the wind? Well, keep yourself warm, especially your feet, because we are prone to wind in situations when we have sleep disturbances. Therefore, we should make ourselves comfy. Proper diet and quality foods are the antidote to poor nutrition and a damp diet. Much stress, overwork, and consumption of alcohol or tobacco must be reduced. Proper workout, breathing techniques, yoga, or qigong are the best wind preventive remedies. Well, surprisingly, chicken soup is the most effective for preventive sickness and the common cold. Well, you knew that from your grandma. You can add to your favorite chicken soup goji berries, shiitake mushrooms, astragalus, and seaweed, of course. Garlic and ginger can also be added. Tonic herbs such as dongchong xiazao, lingzhi, and yungzhi can promote a healthy body environment. Tonic herbs may be taken as foods or general health supplements. Generally speaking, transformations of wind in the body always happen due to deficiency of blood or vital energy qi. To strengthen the wei qi, should be avoided any toxins or alcohol. Raw and cold foods should be avoided. To treat wind conditions, it is necessary to follow a diet regime and exclude food that is hot and damp in nature, for instance, onions, garlic, hot peppers, sweets, coffee, fried and processed food. The general rule is to eat a variety of foods. Eat regularly, with breakfast at about 7 a.m., lunch around 12 noon, actually at noon, and supper at about 6 p.m. Consume less or no meat at all. About 10% of your diet should be about proteins or the meat. About 30% of the diet should be complex carbohydrates. The largest part should be cooked vegetables. Meals should consist largely of lightly cooked vegetables, roughly 40 to 60% of your diet, and about 30% of the diet should be comprised of complex herbs, as I mentioned before. Proteins should be included about 10% of the diet, and with a focus on high quality sources. Your diet should also include plenty of fragrant and lightly spiced dishes. Highly processed foods and as preservatives should be avoided. Find an appropriate time to eat in peace, with the greatest intake in the morning, a moderate amount of lunch, and small amount for the evening meal, as we are following that saying in Chinese medicine. Supper should be consumed at least 3 hours before sleep. Proteins should comprise only a focus on high quality sources, and your diet should also include plenty of fragrant and lightly spiced dishes. To preserve vital energy, consume grains and legumes. Brown rice, red rice, millet, oats, barley, lentils, black beans, tzatziki beans. From nuts, for instance, almonds, walnuts, chestnuts, and seeds, sunflower, pumpkin, chia, sesame, flax, for instance. Vegetables with Roots are also excellent, such as carrots, daikon, parsnips, parsley root, and sweet potato. I would like to share a very basic idea how wind is characterized in Chinese medicine and very basic remedies and recipes for different wind syndromes. Well, I mentioned 4 syndromes, as I already said, which would be the cold, hot wind, and dry and damp. So I will be following in that order. Cold wind is manifested by an aversion to wind and chill. It is accompanied by fever, headaches, and generalized aches. Usually there is a runny nose within thin, watery mucus, nose sweating, sneezing, and a cough. It is present, well, it should be a cough. It is present in occipital headaches, muscle aches, and neck stiffness. Pulse is tight, slow, and floating. The tongue coating is white, definitely. To expel cold wind, in TCM there is a prescription called Jingfang Bai Du San, which should be translation something like she's on a patent, Sapochnikova formula, which should be basically the first choice. So for the wind cold type, to expel wind, it is benefit to intake ginger, cinnamon, garlic, onions, cayenne pepper, scallion, chilies, coriander, and mint. Of course, cabbage, which are all warming foods with detoxifying properties. 1 cup of fresh ginger tea with a bit of brown sugar is a great source to warm up body. Ginger and brown sugar recipe should be prepared like, for example, 3 slices of ginger and an appropriate amount of brown sugar should be put into a cup and stewed with boiling water. Well, alternatively, 15 grams of ginger and 30 grams of brown sugar can be put into a pot, immersed in the water, and decocted. The warm decoction can be drunk frequently during the day. Usually the common cold is cured when sweating, and to benefit the digestion, it is recommended to drink tea from citrus peel or add ginger, coriander, fennel seed, and anise to the food. When experiencing wind cold symptoms, chicken broth is the first choice. For example, in China, there is a famous Chinese ginger garlic soup, which basically consists of 1 to 2 inch piece of fresh ginger, which is cut into slices, 4 green onions, and there is actually used only the white part, cut into several pieces, 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, cut into slices as well, and 6 cups chicken bone broth. To cook it, put all ingredients into a pot and boil it for about 10 minutes. After that, drink the soup while it is warm, or hot if you can bear it, of course. Hot wind represents, this is the second part, actually the second syndrome, which would be the hot wind, represents acute fever with mild chills or no chills, mild sweating, headaches, usually it is frontal, and red eyes, sore throat, photosensitivity, thirst, cough, with yellow and sticky mucus, nasal obstruction, or a nasal discharge that is thick and yellow or green. Respiratory problems exist definitely, constipation and epistaxis. The pulse is floating and fast, in contrary to the previous wind cold, which is pulse is floating and slow, and the tongue is usually red-tipped with a thin yellow coating, in contrary to the cold wind type, whereas the coating is white always, and could be thick, but not necessarily, but it is white. To expel wind, heat, first TCM herbal choice is Yin Xiao San, which would be the honeysuckle and forsythia formula in English. And for wind heat symptoms, you can use peppermint tea or chrysanthemum flower tea because of their cooling effect. Should be avoided any type of hot or spicy foods. In Chinese medicine, chrysanthemum tea is a cooling tea that helps bring down fever symptoms. Dandelion root tea is considered cooling as well, and it can help clear heat from the liver, lungs, and stomach too. There is an interesting recipe for hot wind syndrome, such as fruit salad with fresh mint, which basically the properties and are that it consists of 1.5 cups of strawberries, which are cleaned and quartered, 3/4 of cup of fresh pineapple chunks, and 1 cup apples cored and cut into chunks, 1 cup of pears cored and cut into chunks as well, and 1/4 of chopped finely cup of mint. We should prepare it in a mixing bowl, combine the cut fruit and toss. We should add the fresh mint and stir gently. Serve it in perfect dishes or small bowls. This recipe is cool, while each ingredient enters the lungs to clear heat or moisten the lungs. So the third type of wind would be the damp wind, which basically causes common cold symptoms accompanied by sore limbs, nausea, anorexia, and diarrhea. Its signature symptoms are arthritis-related problems. Acutely, it causes relatively mild fevers, which is unrelieved by sweating and heaviness in the body. It might provocate nausea and vomiting, diarrhea, fatigue, and lethargy. It usually presents as sore throat, thirsts, and restlessness. Urine is concentrated. The pulse is soft and a bit rapid. The tongue is greasy, white, or with a yellow coating. Generally, symptoms are worse in the afternoon. To expel wind dampness, the first choice of the TCM formula is Xinjia Xiangru Yin, which is newly augmented muscle drink. To treat wind dampness, choose foods and herbs that are both pungent and aromatic. For example, turmeric, basil, oregano, rosemary, ginger, flaxseed oil, or other sources such as barley, rye, Chinese jump steers, which is konik seeds, sprouts, cilantro, mustard greens, turnips, mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, for example, cherries, papaya, black beans, kidney beans, lotus seeds, mung beans, black soya beans, quail eggs, and, for example, sardines. Foods which should be definitely restricted or avoided are raw salads, raw vegetables in general, eggplants, well, let's say everything which can cause damp. Raw fruits, persimmons, excess amounts of meat or dairy, refined sugars, high doses of vitamin C, and cold foods like ice cream or smoothies, and definitely ice drinks, which includes ice water. For damp wind syndromes, there is an interesting Chinese soup recipe, which consists basically of Chinese yam, lotus seed, Aereopteryx poria, and lean pork. We should wash all the ingredients and place them in a pot. We should fill it with enough water to cover the ingredients. Then bring to a boil and then simmer on low heat for 2 to 3 hours. Basically, and after that, eat it as you wish. And the fourth and last part of the wind, which should include the dry wind, which main feature is dryness, particularly of the nose, lips, mouth, and throat, and usually it's accompanied by cracked lips. Usually a person have aversion to wind and cold and headache with mild fever and slight sweating, dry cough with little or no mucus, pulse is floating and wiry and a bit rapid, the tongue is dry with a red body and white coating, should be a thin white coating. To expel wind and moisten dryness, there is a first choice TCM remedy called Sang Xing Tang, which should be mulberry leaf and apricot kernel decoction formula. To be avoided, in generally speaking, should be spicy or pungent tasting food, and foods that have a very warm or hot nature, such as we already spoke basically, such as scallions, chilies, garlic, and wine. So we should basically eat light food. Ginger also should be taken with extreme care, and it is great to help stop cough and nausea about ginger, but we shouldn't overuse it because it has warm and hot nature impact. There is a famous Chinese recipe for the dry wind called autumn equinox soup, which consists basically about 300 and maybe 250 grams of lean pork, which should be cut into cubes, 20 grams of shanyao, which is in Chinese, actually it is Chinese yam, 20 grams of qiangshi, which is foxnut barley, 20 grams of beishashan, which is Glenia littoralis root, 15 grams of baihe, lily bulb, and 50 grams of yuzhu, which is Polygonatum odoratum rhizome, 50 grams of yiran, which is job steers, 50 grams of lianzi bai, which is a white lotus seed bai, and 3 to 4 picks of long raiyo, which is a longan fruit. And in the end, 2 picks of wu hua guo, basically dry figs cut in half, and you can salt to taste. To be cooked, we should basically scald pork in boiling water for about 2 to 3 minutes, drain and rinse the meat. Rinse herbs and place all ingredients in 2 quarts of water and boil it for about 30 minutes. Reduce to low heat and simmer it for about 2 hours. You can skim it up as needed. Salt it a bit and serve. And this should conclude the last type of wind, which is a dry wind. We already mentioned the character of wind, the properties, and the types of wind, which are the 4, as I mentioned firstly. And I hope you can use it. Basically, it's a general knowledge, because more you're acquainted with wind and its syndromes from the vision of Chinese medicine, you can use it in real life situations as very useful health remedies for prevention, of course, and treatment properties. Having said that, I would like to conclude this very episode and to wish you good health and to follow these podcasts in the future with love and light. TCM Podcast, all about Chinese medicine.